Tae-young laid on the bed with wrinkled sheets and tattered pillows. The vases of his room shattered on the ground, scattered all around the room. As he watched his boyfriend leaving in wrath, aside he was the one who had gotten him pregnant. He was pregnant, and when he told that to his boyfriend, all he said was, "Abort it," like he wasn't talking about a little life growing inside him, but some lifeless toy. Hell, with that cruelty laced in his voice, Tae-young knew that he couldn't even say anything like that about some lifeless toy too, and that man had the audacity to say something like that about a baby, and his own baby. Tae-young had fought with him, and at the end he had yelled at Tae-young and left after breaking up with him like Tae-young wasn't bearing his child right then. Wiping off his tears from his face, Tae-young sniffled, looking around the destroyed room. Something that seemed to match the condition of his heart, broken, tattered, beyond repair. Suddenly a voice came that had Tae-young looking up with tears swelling in his eyes. Looking up, his eyes met Jungkook's, his best friend, who was standing at the doorstep of his room, surprised and taken aback by the condition of the room. Also, Tae-young. He looked around, probably taking a look to see if his boyfriend was there, but being met with the empty room, which was filled with nothing but broken things, including Tae-young. Jungkook ran in haste, not taking a look to see where his feet was landing. All he knew that Tae-young needed him. His arms sitting beside Tae-young. He gathered Tae-young in his arms, pulling him against his chest. Where is he? What he said? What happened to the room? Why did he leave you like this? Jungkook asked one after another question, splattering palms over his cheeks, wiping his overflowing tears. Jungkook's flesh went cold. His body froze for a second when Tae-young's sobs brought it back on ground. He took a look around the bedroom. He brushed fingers through his hair soothingly and dipped his head, looking over to Tae-young with surprised eyes. Tae-young shook his head, holding Jungkook's t-shirt, snuggling his face in his neck, seeking comfort greedily. He left. He left. Kook. How could he? What are you saying? How can he leave? Tae-young pulled himself closer, shoving his face in the middle of his chest. What do you think, Kook? He stuttered out the words, getting himself back and arching his neck to look at Jungkook. Look around. See, he did it all before leaving. He told me to abort, Kook. He wanted me to abort, and when I refused, he left, breaking up with me and getting angry like. Shh, Jungkook muttered, palming his face, caressing his cheek with his thumb after wiping off the tears, with wrath building up in his veins and the urge to kill the man firing him up from inside. Jungkook smiled for the sake of Tae-young, shaking his head tenderly. All right, Jungkook nodded, smiling and shaking his head at the same time. Don't cry. We'll go through it, like always. We'll go through it, Tae-young. Tae-young shrugged helplessly, sobbing as he pressed his forehead against Jungkook's chest, letting his black-fitted shirt soak up his falling tears. His hands went down, clutching themselves over his shirt from the waist. How can we, Kook? How can I raise him alone? How will I manage it all? Kook, tell me, he cried, shaking his head at the end. I can't do it. I can't. Jungkook held him against himself tighter, as if the strength of his arms holding Tae-young would actually end helping Tae-young to mend himself back together, as if his boyfriend hadn't just walked away, breaking him in pieces that won't be able to get themselves back together. I'll shove sense in his brain and bring him back, Tae, Jungkook said with gritted teeth, looking over the ground as if Tae-young's boyfriend was standing there and only the arrows burning in his doe eyes were enough to kill him. If that's what you want, I promise. He won't admit that it hurt him to his depths saying out those words aloud, but they did cause handing over Tae-young and the baby to the man who had rejected them without even giving a second thought towards a family with an angel like Tae-young. The angel he has been silently in love with since the beginning of their friendship, the only reason why Jungkook asked him to be his friend in the first place. Tae-young shook his head in denial, wiping off his running nose over Jungkook's shirt. I don't want him. I don't want something after begging. Both of us, me and my baby, don't deserve someone who's as shitty as him. We don't deserve him. I'd rather die than take a begged bowl of love from someone. Kook, Tae-young said, and then leaned back to look at Jungkook, who was looking down at him with eyes as if he was staring the moon from close for the first time. You know me, Kook. I'd never want a partner like that, and especially not a father for my son who ordered me to kill him without second thoughts, Tae-young said slowly as a tears escaped the corner of his eye, looking deep in Jungkook's tender love-dripping eyes. You know me, Kook. You know me, he whispered, his warm breath ghosting over Jungkook's face and lips. Jungkook's breaths turned erratic, his heart drumming itself against his ribs, and his hands unconsciously tightened their hold over where they held Tae-young protectively, before he could lean and make another mistake that could shatter Tae-young even more than before. Jungkook broke the intense eye contact, distracting himself from Tae-young's face. Jungkook blinked his eyes, looking over to the room, and then thinking of something he nodded to himself. Let's get your stuff packed up then, Jungkook muttered under his breath, and then hooking arms under Tae-young's legs, securing his neck. Jungkook picked up Tae-young in his arms, picking him up carefully in bridal style. Tae-young's arms slung over his neck, his breath hitching, and his head laying itself over Jungkook's shoulder. What are you doing? Tae-young stuttered out, surprised. Jungkook securely laid him over the bed, holding his neck and placing the pillow beneath. He got back and pointed finger at Tae-young, if warning him about something. Stay here. I'll clean it all. Pack your stuff, and then we'll leave for my apartment. You are going to live with me. Tae-young watched him surprised, eyes wide open, and took in a few seconds to process the sudden revelation which Jungkook has made to him. What did you just say? Jungkook walked back, shrugging his shoulder coolly. What? He asked, looking over to his shoulder to take a look over to Tae-young, who was leaning himself on the bed over his elbows. No, stay back, don't get up, I'll handle it. Just tell me what you meant by that, Tae said. I didn't say that in Spanish, did I? Jungkook replied. Tae-young sighed, rolling his eyes. Don't act smart with me, Kook. I am not leaving with you. No are not gonna be a burden. Complete that sentence, and I swear I'll just leave everything and forcefully take out of this house to mine. In a second, Jungkook threatened. Choice isn't yours, it's mine, and thankfully I have made my choice. You are going to live with me from now on, and absolutely nothing in the world is gonna stop me from making that happen. What about my work? It's almost a 2-hour drive from. Who said you are gonna work while carrying him? Jungkook asked from the floor, cleaning the broken things. I ain't letting you work as you carry him. You don't care about yourself, but I do. Tae-young chuckled. You are joking, aren't you? Jungkook pressed his together biofa, looking up at Tae-young with dark and intense eyes. Try me, then. 3 weeks went by and Tae-young couldn't even pinpoint what was happening with his life. The way his life was blending with Jungkook was too good to be true. He never left his side, and never let be alone, because he knew Tae-young would sit and think about his life current situation. He owned a business of his own, in which he worked online with his colleagues. They took projects from the international companies and then handled those online working by each other's side. So that was a huge advantage Tae-young had, that he was never alone, not even when he wanted to. For a couple days it felt like he was a baby. Jungkook bought him stuff from outside at midnight, whatever he shared that he wanted to eat. And today was the day when Jungkook was getting ready after ordering Tae-young that they are going out for shopping and roam around. It was different to be with him now, cause he was treating Tae-young like Tae-young was actually pregnant with his baby and not someone else. The way he treated him, the way he took care of him, it was too overwhelming. Especially the times when Jungkook entered guest room at midnight and sitting himself beside Tae-young, he just spent an hour staring him and brushing fingers through his hair. The touch was always intimate and soft, something which hadn't been Tae-young's fate till now. "Tae, are you ready? We need to leave," Jungkook called out. Coming and entering the room, he stopped at once when he saw Tae-young sitting at the edge of the bed, head lowered, and wearing the same clothes as before. He frowned, looking around. "Hey, didn't you get ready? We should leave, shouldn't we?" he said tenderly, sitting himself beside Tae-young. And without wasting a second, he let his hands go over to his and hold his firmly. "What happened?" he asked when finally Tae-young looked up from the ground, matching his worried gaze. "What are you thinking? You have been quiet for too long, Tae. What happened?" It's been something that he has been noticing from last week. Since they slept together on the same bed, Tae-young couldn't sleep alone. He remained anxious and dark circles gave Jungkook the answer that he hadn't been sleeping well. It started with Tae-young visiting him in the room at 3 a.m. in the morning and laid himself in Jungkook's feet, hugging those to his chest. And that's when Jungkook connected the dots. If Tae-young being sleepy and exhausted the whole day, then it began, them sleeping together, where Jungkook always opened his eyes to Tae-young's head snuggled in his neck and their bodies tangled, as well being careful for the baby inside Tae-young. One morning Tae-young had woken up with a morning wood pressed up against Jungkook's thigh. Being embarrassed, he had apologized and ran away from Jungkook. Since that day, he had been silent and distant. The main reason, which became the root of Jungkook suggesting something like this, a day out. They both needed it. "Why are you doing it all?" Tae asked, catching Jungkook off guard by his question. "What do you mean, why am I doing this all? You are my best friend. I can't just leave you like this, do you want?" "This is not the answer I am seeking, Kook," Tae-young said. And then closing his eyes, inhaling a deep breath, he turned himself to Jungkook and shrugged. "You visited me every night at midnight and watched me 4 hours, toying with my hair before we began sleeping together. I heard your sniffles. I thought I was imagining things, but I wasn't." Jungkook gulped, surprised. "What do you mean? What sniffles, what visit? Did you visit me every night when I came to stay over or?" "Yes, I did," Jungkook said, blinking his eyes over to Tae-young. "Yes, I did, because you were pregnant and I need to be alert, especially at nights. You know, I can't just leave you and forget that I am the one who you have at this point in your life, right? You have the choice," Tae-young said gently, shaking his head. "You don't have to do this all. It's not your responsibility. This baby, me, us. We aren't. You can also leave like others, Kook." "Do you want me to leave you?" Jungkook asked, dipping his head, analyzing Tae-young's expression. Tae-young smiled broken-heartedly, a smile that crushed Jungkook's soul in pieces, which he couldn't even count. "No one asked before leaving. You don't have to ask too." Jungkook scooted himself closer. "I am not others, Tae-young," he whispered, looking deeply in his eyes. "I'll never be them, Tae. They didn't know your worth. I do. I know you. I know what you are, and trust me, I can. Let this world take everything from me, but not you, never you, he tenderly breathed out, losing himself in the ocean eyes of Tae-young's. Holding Tae-young's hands from his one hand, he let his arm go upwards and fingers trailed over Tae-young's temples. From his index fingers, he delicately touched Tae-young's blonde stray strand behind his ear, smiling at him. You are a gem, and gems aren't thrown. They are meant to be kept, he said, and planted his palm over his heart. Here, close to this, it's their deserved place. It's your and your child's deserved place in my home and soul, Tae-young. Tae-young's eyes watered, his lips trembling slightly and his cheeks turning light pink. He recognized a flicker of something else which was opposite to what cover the eyes when people are talking to their friends. It was something else, something more than friendship, something more bigger, more stronger. Do I stay in your heart? He asked hesitantly. Voice small and weak. You have always stayed in there, never anywhere else. It's yours and yours only, Jungkook muttered. It has always been yours. Tae-young let his hands travel up to his jaws, cradling his face. Jungkook's breath hitched slightly at the contact, as soon as Tae-young's long slender hands met his skin and set his flesh on fire. It was like cold meeting the warmth, sun meeting the ocean. Fire getting intimately connected with the water they had touched before, but never like this. Never being this close that both of them hear the sounds the other heart made. Both of their breaths rolled out of their parted mouth and hit the other's skin, as if the already dead worn out land was finally being watered by something powerful. Powerful, which was nothing but the needed touch. The needed touch for Tae-young, a tender. The touch and caress of a true lover. Of course his boyfriend had touched him, but his touch hadn't affected his skin and soul like Jungkook's did. He touched him like he was some kind of petal. A delicate piece of art, a special mirror which he was afraid to break. No. His touch was never like Jungkook's. Jungkook's when closed his eyes and breathed in the scent of Tae-young's skin by pressing his nose over his cheek. Tae-young's had out-of-body experience, something that felt to be out of this world, something which took him somewhere else, entirely. And when Tae-young's hands held his nape, pulling him closer, Jungkook's heart lost its every string and connected itself with that touch of Tae-young's he has been fantasizing about and dreaming about for years. It directly began to beat, being truly alive over Tae-young's steadying, embracing touch. Tae-young, Jungkook, both of them breathed out right over each other's lips, breathing heavily. Their chests rose up and down, and their warm breaths wore them a dress of the other's breath. Jungkook let his hands fly behind Tae-young's hand, carding his fingers through his hair and fisting his hand at the back. Jenkins Tae-young, even more closer to himself. Please let me, he pleaded, almost sounding like he was gonna cry from the emotions, an overwhelming sentiment rising a flood inside him. Please, let me kiss you, please. The trance in which Tae-young's soul and heart was being broke in an instant, and his melting body froze immediately. Their closed eyes opened in sync, and seeing the surprised look on Jungkook's face, Tae-young could tell that he was as surprised as him upon the words he had just said. Right when Jungkook opened his mouth to say something, Tae-young stood up saying, I'll be back, I need some time with myself. Tae-young said instantly, and carding his hand through his hair, he grabbed his jacket from the couch and ran away, leaving Jungkook gaping him from behind until he left the room. When Tae-young returned, he knew it was already late at night, around 1 a.m. in the morning, or maybe 2 a.m. He hadn't seen that, but dark night matching. The current state of his insides made him feel like that. When he entered the living room and made his way to kitchen, hearing no voice from coming anywhere and the lights off, he could tell that Jungkook was asleep. Jungkook, despite thinking of what was to happen between them a few hours back, what he felt, and what he could have done with Jungkook if it hadn't been for his mind awakening. He couldn't reach the end point. He had always had this feeling of Jungkook being in love with him. 'Cause he left his dates many times for Taehyung. He broke up almost all the times whenever Taehyung said anything, literally anything about his boyfriend and not liking him. He had always put Taehyung first and never let anyone take his place. Then, 2 years back, he had stopped dating. Taehyung didn't notice it, but looking back to the times, the way Himins, who was their mutual best friend, smiled at Jungkook and kept teasing him in secret, language existing for just both of them. Whenever Taehyung was laying in Jungkook's arms, he could tell his doubt had been right. Jungkook loved him, but never confessed, and maybe it was his love for Taehyung which was making him take care of that child beside Taehyung. Feeling his feet heavy to carry him to the kitchen, Taehyung went, and turning the lights on, he was surprised to find Jungkook sitting on the stool, with meal prepared at the front and his head laying over his arm. Taehyung's heart nearly broke at the sight. Jungkook was waiting for him, making the meal. God, what had he ever done to deserve someone like him in his life? What? Slowly taking his steps towards him, he went and shook Jungkook's shoulder, waking him up tenderly. Jungkook's eyes opened deliberately, and seeing the sight of Taehyung standing there towering him, he immediately stood up in haste, making the stool to fall down with a sound resonating in the silent kitchen. "Oh, you are back," he breathed up in raspy thick voice, carrying a hint of sleepiness still lingering there laced in his words. "Come, I made dinner. I'll heat that up for you," he said, already getting away from Taehyung, nervousness mounting up in his beautiful doe eyes. Before he could get away, Taehyung held his arm, stopping him in his tracks. "No," Taehyung said, turning up Jungkook and making him face him. "No, we aren't putting that under. Pal Jungkook, we need to talk about that, about whatever." Jungkook smiled, shaking his head. "No, we don't have to," he said, pressing his other hand over Taehyung's chest, giving a sweet caress. "Forgive me. I just slipped." Taehyung stopped his words by crowding in his personal space, hooking his arm around Jungkook's waist and pulling him closer until their chests pressed together. Jungkook's arms naturally found their desired place over Taehyung's shoulder. Looking directly in Jungkook's eyes, Taehyung shook his head. "No," he mumbled slowly. "We need to talk about that. About what you said, and I need to know if what I felt that time when you touched me was one-sided or we both fell. I felt that up to my depths I didn't even know I had." Jungkook whispered, and gulped as Taehyung's eyes hardened from the emotions settling there as he watched Jungkook steadily and closely. Taehyung's grasp on Jungkook's shirt from the back tightened, and his fist ended up grasping his flesh, which had Jungkook's fingernails digging themselves into his shoulders, making both of them feel like they were already short on breath cause of the sudden currents rolling all over their skin. "How long?" Taehyung asked, voice firm and perfectly held in a sweet rhythm that only turned Jungkook's heart upside down. "What? How long have you been in love with me? How long?" Tae asked again. Jungkook's body shuddered in Taehyung's embrace, and so Taehyung could feel that his doubt was right. Jungkook loved him, but then why didn't he confess? Why didn't he tell Taehyung? Was that the reason he was being this nice to Taehyung? Was that the reason he was being this welcoming of him and his child? Jungkook opened his mouth and maybe thought of lying, but seeing the firmness of belief settling and making home in the eyes of Taehyung, he stopped and just defeatedly said, "Since we were 17, I had been in love with you. I began having a crush on you when I was 13. Taehyung's world began to spin around darkness for a second. It took him a long time to swallow the information which had just escaped from his mouth. His eyes widened on their own, and Byo for Jungkook could tell him to forget all of that. he spoke up. Why didn't you tell me? Jungkook smiled sadly. What's the point of confessing when you couldn't read that in my eyes? My eyes said it all, always. Everyone around us could see it, but never you. Jimin saw it, Yoongi did, our seniors did, my classmates did. I never told anyone. They saw it in the way I stared you, the way I looked at you. Taeyoung held his waist from both of his hands, and pulling him even closer, he pressed their foreheads together, never breaking the string of from heart to heart existing between them because of their eye contact. You always looked at me like that. Jungkook sighed, nodding. Exactly. He always looked at Taeyoung like that cause he always loved him, even when he didn't know if it was love or not. He always loved him. And to say that the revelation wasn't enough for Taeyoung to fall on his knees and sob like a baby, it would be a thick white lie. Taeyoung lost his grip on Jungkook, and then he sat himself sighing loudly on the stool placed right behind him. God, Jungkook, he mumbled to himself, face-palming. Forget it, Jungkook began. Taeyoung gritted his teeth, and then landed his piercing eyes on Jungkook. Shut the foof cup. It's not something to forget, Kook, God. He muttered, carding his fingers through his hair. Was that the reason you were saying to raise my baby together with me? 'Cause you loved me? Jungkook frowned. No, yes, but not in the way you are thinking. I knew you wouldn't accept me as your lover. And who said that? Taeyoung shrugged. You, Jungkook began, and then paused. I don't know. I know you didn't love that man, but you never really saw me more than a friend. I can't lose our friendship because of my stupid feelings, Taeyoung. Taeyoung blinked his eyes at Jungkook, thinking before speaking. Up shakingly. I don't know what to say, Jungkook, he said exhaustedly, tears swelling up in his eyes. I know what I felt when you touched me was something else. Something new. Something entirely different. I know. After that, we cannot be friends. At least, I can't be. But he pressed the heels of his palm over his eyes, suppressing the tears. I don't want to force us on you, both me and my child. For he could complete. Jungkook was already sitting on his knees in front of him, placing hands over his knees. Look. Doesn't matter if you want me or not. Doesn't matter if my love bothers you or not. Doesn't matter if you hate me or not. You and your kid are my responsibility, Jungkook said, being confident. You and your child are mine till you find someone else. What if I don't want someone else? And be with you for the rest of my life? Taeyoung asked. Jungkook's eyes lit up. That's in my favor, my love. You know it. What I wouldn't lose in this world just to have you by my side for the rest of my life. What I wouldn't do just to have and a part of you, your child. With me, being mine, belonging to me. Taeyoung's eyes watered and a tear ran down his cheeks. Just when Jungkook reached out his hand to wipe off his tear, Taeyoung caught him off guard by hauling him up, grasping his collars and crushing their lips together. Jungkook's heart flew somewhere in the air as soon as his lips landed over Taeyoung, and just when Taeyoung began kissing him, his body melted in seconds, and without suppressing himself he held his arms out, hooking them around Taeyoung's neck and clutching fingers over Taeyoung's hair. From the back, breaking the kiss, Taeyoung looked down at him, crying. You don't have to give up anything, he whispered, caressing Jungkook's cheeks. You don't have to lose anything, he breathed, right over his lips. Give me time. I know I have always loved you. And just in seconds of having you like this, seeing you like this, have completed me in way I never knew I was void in. I love you, just know it, but I want to make sure that I want you for you and not because you are handing me your hand. When everyone else left, Jungkook nodded, pecking his lips. We can go out, till then. Like couples, he said hesitantly, and then placed his hand over Taeyoung's belly, caressing it as if stroking the head of the small child growing up inside. You both aren't going to leave me. Right, Tae-young shook his head, kissing his forehead. The day I die will be the day I leave you. Trust me on that, he promised, smiling. And then, looking downwards, he pressed his hand over Jungkook's, which was stroking his bare belly. He had always loved you. I can feel that whenever you are near. So, from him be tension-free. Jungkook brought his face closer, kissing the belly. I love you, he whispered, as if telling that to him secretly so Tae-young wouldn't hear. And, I hope one day you walk around my home calling me your papa. Tae-young caressed Jungkook's head, looking down at his hair with fond smile. He will, he whispered to himself, in a voice that was inaudible to Jungkook. He will, I promise.